For my final project, I will analyze how females are represented in video games. I'm going to specifically focus on the physical appearance and general characteristics of females and why they are created in this way, as well as their influence on society. Across the few decades that video games have spanned, the gaming industry has grown and transformed rapidly, yet traditional male and female roles are still being dramatically illustrated. Let's look, for instance, at a handful of iconic female characters in video games across the decades. We have Sonya Blade, who was actually the first female character to be presented in the Mortal Kombat series, and Chun-Li, another female character who was the first to appear in her series Street Fighter. And then we have Jill Valentine, another original protagonist in her series Resident Evil, and then we have Bayonetta, who is the main protagonist in her game. We have Zelda, a princess and the original leading female protagonist in The Legend of Zelda, and Samus Aran, not only the main protagonist of her series Metroid, but also the first female protagonist in video game history. Next is Miss Pac-Man, the subject of her own game, and then Cortana, an artificial intelligence character that embodies a woman in the Halo series. Next is Lara Croft, the leading protagonist of the Tomb Raider series, and finally, Peach, a princess and the original leading female protagonist in the Mario franchise. Now, without having previous knowledge about these characters and the games that they are featured in, I think that there are some similarities that are easily noticeable. For one, they all have a slim figure, and additionally, many have voluptuous curves. Also, based on their apparel, these characters seem to be either dressed scantily or dressed traditionally feminine. Generally in video games, females are presented in this way, with a slim figure and enhanced bodily features, such as their breasts, lips, thighs, and derriere. A female character in a video game can generally be characterized into these categories: a damsel in distress, an ultimate warrior, or simply an over-sexualized object, and all of these categories exemplify their physical appearance. Clearly, females are misrepresented in video games, and there are many probable reasons for this. One being, female representation in the gaming industry is disproportional to that of their counterparts. In addition, society and cultural norms accept and appropriate the way that females are portrayed. The effects of this misrepresentation are actually detrimental to both society as a whole and individual gamers. As seen in this chart, females represent just over 20% of game developers. Consequently, solo female protagonists in games represent less than 10% of those in a random sample of video games. Yet, as seen in this image, about 48% of all gamers are women. This is almost half of the gaming population. Unlike the representation of women in the gaming industry and games themselves, this percentage is actually indicative of the global population as a whole. In addition, the average gamer is about 31 years old, and interestingly enough, iconic female characters are roughly around this age, immortalized in their beauty and youth. Now, there are a couple of theories that were discussed in lecture that may help to explain why there are such adverse effects from the misrepresentation of females in video games. One being the cultivation theory. This theory explains to what degree media leads to a distorted perception of social reality. In fact, a survey conducted by Karen Dill and Catherine Thill confirmed that stereotypes of aggressive male characters and sexually objectified female characters are held both by gamers and non-gamers. Next, the social learning theory describes behavior as learned through imitation of attractive models with attached rewards. A study done by Elizabeth Bem Morowitz and Dana Mastro concluded that playing a sexualized video game heroine unfavorably influenced people's beliefs about women in the world. They were seen as less valuable and worthy of recognition than males. Finally, the schema theory describes how knowledge is grouped and used. Research by Christopher Bartlett and Richard Harris showed that participants who played a video game displaying muscular or thin characters reported lower self-esteem when asked to complete a survey regarding body image measures. This suggested that video games have a negative influence on the body image of players. However, in recent light, games in the gaming industry are changing to represent females in a more realistic light. As far as games go, Clementine, a main character in the Walking Dead series, features a young girl, challenging the protagonist age demographic in video games. Also, a new Overwatch character, Mai, supports a more refreshingly realistic body type. And in the gaming industry, women in development and design positions are continuing to increase. We can expect more realistic representation of women in video games in the future. Since games are starting to diversify their female characters, women are embracing this idea. Many young and new gamers support this diversification as society and cultural norms are shifting toward equality between the sexes. Now the question is, how long will this progress take to make a significant impact? A few years? Decades maybe? Thank you.